Alderman Ravel.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Fleming.
Here.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Alderman Anderson, would you please be so kind as to make the motion for the suspension of the rules?
Absolutely. Due to the executive order issued by Governor J.B. Pritzker, staff recommends a suspension of the rules regarding in-person attendance requirements for public meetings, allowing for city council members and city staff to participate in this meeting remotely. I move approval.
Second.
Clerk Reed, could you call the roll, please?
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
And Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. For those who aren't aware, I am serving as Mayor Pro Tem in the absence of Mayor Haggerty. There are no mayor public announcements or communications. Are there city manager public announcements?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was just going to do a quick poll of the council if there was any interest in having a meeting, a third meeting in January. I was looking ahead on the calendar. I know we've been having a lot of discussions about affordable housing and homelessness, and we wanted to get back to our regularly scheduled programming of quarterly meetings regarding affordable housing. So I'm looking ahead to January. I know it's hard to think about 2021 right now, but if you could contemplate having a meeting the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day, that would be amenable. That would be one option. Otherwise, we would look to schedule that the third meeting in February if that was not a good option for the council. So think it over and I will ask you about it later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, city manager. Are there city clerk communications?
Yes, I just have, sorry for the lighting, my apologies. Just two communications. It appears, we've had our election filings in the last few weeks. And based on some filings that we received today, it appears that some primaries may be happening in a number of wards, and we'll make those announcements soon. Also, I want to announce that tomorrow at noon, the clerk's office will be hosting the lottery for candidates to determine ballot placement. So folks can tune in to our Facebook Live for that tomorrow at noon.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Much appreciated. We will now move on to public comment. My understanding is that there are 13 speakers signed up. So each speaker will get 3 minutes. First up is Don Wilson.
Thank you, Alderman Suffredin. All right, so tonight I'm checking in with everybody, not so much as my aldermanic hat, but I am not going to turn on my video even though somebody asked me to, as a resident and a neighbor. First, I want to thank our health department and our volunteers who are working really hard in addition to their regular duties for the work they're doing on the contact tracing and checking in on people who have COVID. I also want to thank our first responders and our healthcare workers who are continuing to care for our community despite the risks to themselves and to their families. After I finish my comments tonight, I am going to be signing off because despite what I thought were my best efforts at being safe, I am one of the recent positive COVID cases. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not uncomfortable, but I don't want to talk about me. I'm very grateful because I have what I need, but I'm also, I think, perhaps more acutely aware that there are many people and families in our community who don't have what they need and are at risk of being in that situation. So I know from living here, from doing this job, that we are a community that is really blessed with a lot of resources. Many, if not most, communities don't have the same level of resources. Even so, the people in the organizations who are doing this important work need our support. So I'm asking everybody to please look into how you can help. The Evanston Community Foundation has a fund you can support to help with a range of urgent needs. Connections for the Homeless is doing some incredible work. Groups like the YM, the YW are providing invaluable help with housing. There are a lot of groups and a lot of individuals and a lot of our restaurants and businesses who are helping out with food. They're doing an amazing job, but they still need more help. Please support these local restaurants and businesses, buy gifts from a local artist, help out in our community. I want everybody to keep these needs in mind in the coming weeks and months and keep looking out for each other. Take the health guidelines seriously. Anybody can get this, even if you're careful. I can attest to that. Even if you don't have a fever. I don't have a fever. I never had a fever. Tonight, I'm going to be missing some important conversations. I regret that. Things like reparations, the natural areas ordinance. But I trust and have confidence that my colleagues will continue those conversations. And I look forward to being part of those at our next meeting. So I want to wish everybody's good and happy holidays through this challenging time. Thank you for giving me a few minutes here to say a few words. Like I said, I've heard from some friends. I have what I need. So like I said, I'm very fortunate and grateful. But let's really look out for other people in our community who really need some help in this time. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody and I'm going to hop off. And I'll talk to everybody soon. Be well.
Alderman Wilson, be well. Next up is Francine Allen. Francine, I hope you waited it out.
Did. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. You heard me in the beginning. I live at 2727 Elgin Road. That's a confusing little part of golf between McDaniel and Crawford, and I am pleased asking for your help. I am currently faced with a $45,000 sewer repair bill. I don't have a lot of time to go through all the different components here, but a problem started in late August. I had companies come out and one of them appeared to be able to clear the broken pipe. I was in constant contact with the sewer supervisor at the time, who even sent one of his colleagues to view the video recording of the pipe, and it looked to him as well that it was clear and appeared to be intact, and I thought I dodged a bullet. But just before Thanksgiving, my toilet started overflowing again twice, just for no apparent reason. And again, I called the company back. They did hydrojetting, which is high pressure water that's pulsed through the pipe to see if they can clear it. They weren't able to. They referred me to another company who might be able to do it and then line the pipe. They were not able to clear it or line it. And then there was a third company who came out with much heavier equipment for rotting and hydrojetting. They worked for 5 hours and weren't able to get anywhere with it. So the last resort is to dig into Gulf Road. I have contacted several large plumbing and sewer companies for estimates, and they are up to $45,000. I am very much aware that the city ordinance states that the homeowner owns the sewer pipe from their house to the city main, but because I live on Gulf, I'm faced with a sewer repair that is approximately 10% of the market value of my home. I live in a small house. If I lived in the same house on a side street, this repair would be significantly less. As a matter of fact, my plumbers have told me that they did one recently on Hartzell that only cost $8,500 because they only had to take 8 feet down to the sewer main. Again, still expensive, but not the crushing financial blow of $45,000. So I am here pleased to ask the city to reevaluate this ordinance and to work in partnership with homeowners when they're faced with this type of catastrophic expense. And again, this is because I live on the main road, and there's the majority of Evanstonians do not live on main roads, and their bills would be much, much smaller for the same repair. Also, it would be very helpful if the city would help the homeowner find alternative solutions to avoid excavating a major thoroughfare. I feel like I'm being penalized for living in exactly what I can afford, a modest home that happens to be on a busy street. And when I bought my house 10 years ago, I was never informed that if my sewer pipe breaks or digging into Gulf Road is required, it would be 5 times more than if I lived around the corner. And per my home inspector's recommendation, even before I bought the house, I did do a sewer pipe video recording, and there was, the pipes were fine. There was no problem. So my issue is I feel that it's not equitable or reasonable for a homeowner to pay this back-breaking expense because their house is on Gulf Road and their sewer pipe connects to the main 14 feet under Gulf. I did some checking in other suburbs such as Schaumburg, Villa Park, and Rolling Meadows do pay for the sewer repairs beyond the curb.
I appreciate it. You're at 3 minutes. Do you want to wrap up very quickly, or would you like me to follow up with you?
Well, again, for modest homeowners in Evanston, this is an unbearable burden. And I really need your help, and I'm hoping that there is something that can be done to work in partnership with the city for this $45,000 repair.
All right, thank you. And thank you for your patience and waiting this out. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Next up is Misty Wittenberg.
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't believe Ms. Wittenberg is on the Zoom call.
Okay. Renee Paden. Is Renee here? If not,
I'm here. I'm here.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Sufferton. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give you information. I submitted a petition to SP1. I submitted it to the clerk just a little while ago, and I wanted to give you an overall picture of what it is. There are 3 minimum criteria established by NARC. I'm not going to read them all. They're in the packet. But the remedy must be defined and agreed to by those who suffered the injury or harm. Well, I haven't seen that. For the people who I've spoken to, none of us agree. So this is the basic points of my petition. We demand a direct cash payment for reparations as first proposed by Alderman Robin Ruth Simmons. We demand that the reparations subcommittee's distribution plan of the monies through the restorative housing reparations program, which is on the city council's agenda as SP1, be denied. We demand that the reparations subcommittee must be independent, not Evanston affiliated, not affiliated with the government, including but not limited to Evanston City Council and staff, and unbiased to ensure a fair and equitable process for reparations disbursement consistent with the NARC criteria. We demand transparency in the reparations process, a monthly accounting of the dollar amount in the reparations fund, the financial institution holding the money and the type of account, the number of people designated to receive reparations, the prioritization of the recipients, the application process, disbursement dates, and the dollar amount each recipient receives. We, the injured, must determine the repair. We, the injured, must direct the repair, and reparative policy must specifically be designed to redress specific past harms, i.e. crimes against our humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Ms. Paden, thank you for that. I will forward the petition on to the rest of the council.
Okay, thank you, Clerk.
All right, next up is Tina Paden. Tina, are you here?
I am. Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody else is well. I hope a speedy recovery for Alderman Wilson. So I want to agree with what Renee just said. We want a cash payment. The original proposal that Alderman Robin Ruth Simmons came to the city council was a cash payment, and we want to continue the cash payment. There are many groups that have received cash payment. Japanese receive cash payment. The Jewish people receive cash payment. The Indians received cash payments from their benefits from the casinos. And we're the only group that does not receive cash payment. This is discrimination on discrimination. If you direct us what to do with the money, it is supposed to help us from the harms that we have already been through. And so now you're trying to give it to someone without passing through our hands. We should have the a wherewithal to do whatever we want to with reparations money. It should not be dictated, because that's what it is. If you're saying that we have to buy a home or we have to go to the bank and spend this money on repairs or whatever, it should be what we want to do with the reparations money. It should not be dictated by anyone what we do. This is discrimination when you're telling us what to do, and this is supposed to be repairing a harm. And so I would like to object to SP1 as well. And we should have a real thinking about how this reparations process is going, because it's not in the right direction. Thank you. Black Lives Matter. No justice, no peace.
Thank you, Tina. Next up, we have Carlos Sutton. Carlos, welcome. You have 3 minutes. But you're muted. You're muted. Don't waste your good stuff yet. All right, go. There you are.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening to Alderman Sufferton, members of the council, and also a speedy recovery for Mr. Wilson. I want to acknowledge my opposition to paragraph 3 of SB1. I'm very concerned that the current discussion on distribution of reparations has ignored an established procedure for who should receive reparations. I thank Renee Paden and Tina Paden for their documentation and their comments for these distributions. With the current discussion on reparations faced with limited resources and historical refusal to accept this as a principle, we must not become involved in formulating justifications and misguided priorities on this committee. It is clear that those who have been adversely affected have priority. It is a responsibility of this committee not to be distracted by political agendas. Elderly first. It is the intent of any reparations to repair harm. Any variation from this practice is nothing but marginalization and distraction of guiding principles. The documentation and previous distributions are clear. Let us not engage in discussions of who in Evanston are qualified for reparations. The priorities are clear. Follow the mandates. Elderly first. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate it. Next up is Priscilla Giles. Ms. Giles, are you here?
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't believe Ms. Giles is here.
Okay, then we'll move on. Cecile McHugh, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm speaking regarding 1900 Sherman. If I raise issues you feel should have been addressed before the vote last meeting, please ask for a revote and vote against approval of this development until the issues you see are resolved to your satisfaction. Regarding the proposal, the public benefit of this development is the extent to which the development exceeds the IHO requirement. Johanna Leonard said at the last meeting that the development meets but does not exceed IHO requirements, which means this development provides no public benefit. At the last council meeting, Sarah, another COE staff member, said the development exceeded the IHO requirements, given the vouchers and all, I believe she said. I appreciate Alderman Simmons posing the question regarding whether or not the development would exceed IHO requirements. The key issue, because if the development does not exceed requirements, there is no public benefit and it should not have been approved. I do not understand, however, why there was no further discussion regarding this issue when these two COE staff members disagreed on this, the only substantial public benefit. The development does not meet IHO requirements because it does not prioritize units for those at 50% and under of the AMI for Evanston residents. HAC says Evanston residents will be prioritized indirectly by targeted marketing, but HUD says all the tens of thousands of people already on the waiting list must be notified of the availability of units, else these applicants who live in other areas will have been discriminated against on the basis of where they currently reside. A source, reputable, informed me that the Perlman building currently contains a negligible number of residents who lived in Evanston before moving to the Perlman. And so apparently whatever targeted marketing HAC has done for the Perlman building did not produce the result HAC says their targeted marketing for the Emerson will produce. I certainly disagree that the development exceeds IHO requirements given the vouchers and all, as I believe Sarah said. While HAC may be able to streamline the effort of obtaining vouchers for new residents, if the bulk of these new residents are not from Evanston, then streamlining the process of obtaining vouchers is a public benefit for Cook County, but not for Evanston. In fact, the IHO says the residents must be taken from COE's own waiting list. The developer states that by offering units affordable for those at 50% of the AMI and under versus those at 60% of the AMI and under as the IHO requires, they are somehow doing more than they need to do. That's untrue. The developer is therefore doing less than the IHO requires by not offering affordable units to those most in need of them, those who make just above 50% of the AMI, too much for vouchers, to qualify for vouchers, but not enough to afford housing. I'm almost done.
wrap up? Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm almost done because there's a really important thing that I need to tell you about that's really important. But basically, if the IHO requirements, they seem to be treated as optional, and that's not okay. But this is the most important thing I want to tell you, is that toxic waste from the Lake City cleaners needed to be cleaned up from the site of the link before construction, as well as from the site of the Sherman Garden parking lot immediately to the north of the Perlman building. Was this issue looked into for this?
Thank you, Ms. McHugh. I appreciate your comments.
Ike Ogbo did not answer my question to that.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Laurie Keenan. Laurie Keenan, you have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. My name's Laurie Keenan. I live in the 7th Ward. I wanted to speak tonight regarding some of the comments that were made at by City Council and the Mayor at the Rules Committee meeting last week regarding legal fees for defending public officials and the possibility of hiring a hearing officer. I heard many of you talk about how over the past 4 years, the residents have weaponized and politicized ethics charges. But I would ask you this, maybe a little more introspection would be prudent. It seems that in a controlled experiment with the number of FOIA requests doubling and the number of ethics complaints also increasing, that maybe you just can't keep blaming the citizens. I heard more than one of you call the whole situation a quote unquote circus, which is insulting to the residents. It takes a lot for a citizen to file an ethics charge against an elected official, and I don't think anyone takes it lightly. I know that I filed an ethics complaint against an alderman only when no other recourse was possible. After an alderman swore at me in a public meeting and then verbally assaulted me after the meeting, I was told by another alderman to let the mayor know, which I did by email. 5 weeks later, I still had no response to my email. With no recourse and no remedy, I ultimately filed an ethics complaint. I had to hire an attorney and then pay for the pleasure of knowing that my tax dollars were being used to hire the attorney for the alderman who had verbally assaulted me. In that case, after multiple meetings and hours of discussion and deliberation, the ethics board made a unanimous ruling that the alderman should be publicly censured and gave that recommendation to the Rules Committee. Unfortunately, at the Rules Committee, instead of recusing herself from the discussion, the same alderman was instead allowed to cast the tie-breaking vote not to censure herself. Subsequently, the entire ethics board resigned. I'm going to read you a section of a letter, a resignation letter from one of the members of the ethics board. I appreciate the opportunity to have served my fellow residents, listen to their concerns, and work with my now former board colleagues to impartially make decisions about grievances that have been put forth for our review. I realize that my resignation is prior to the conclusion of the term for which I had been appointed and which I had intended to serve. I have increasingly been dismayed by the City Council's treatment of the board and complainants, as well as the lack of collegiality and disrespect in developing a new code of ethics. I see limited upside for remaining in service to the board, particularly with very recent appointees of uncertain tenure and with the City Council with 4 alder people accepted that has demonstrated a vainglorious lack of ethical governing and outright animosity towards its constituents that would make impossible a true system of ethical conduct checks and balances. That's the end of the letter. At last week's Rules Committee meeting, I heard Alderman Nguyen complain about the residents filing frivolous complaints and then watched as her husband filed an objection seeking to inhibit ballot access by one of her constituents, a local business owner, to the electoral board over missing staple.
You're all the time. I appreciate it. Can you wrap it up?
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. As you sit casting aspersions on the residents for filing frivolous ethics charges and considering alternatives to that solution, I would ask you to perhaps turn an introspective eye and consider that perhaps, just maybe, it's not the citizens who are continually wrong here. Maybe the circus is on the other side of the dais. Thank you.
Lori. I appreciate it. Next up is Mike DeSilco. Mike, 3 minutes.
Thank you. So a couple of things. So it was brought to our attention at the AP&W committee meeting that item A7 drew attention to the fact that it takes more maintenance and more cost for maintenance of the Robert Crown Center field, the new field, the one with the cancer-causing turf infill, but I wasn't aware of the fact that they have to use a special sweeper that's a magnetic sweeper to pull up all of the metal that's pulled off of people's shoes while they're practicing on that field. And it really is a lose-lose situation when it comes to Robert Crown, and this is just another example of one of the items that should never have happened, and ongoing maintenance that's going to cost citizens a lot of money going forward. The other item is SP2. I'd ask that you reject this. This is something that the next council, and there will be a new council, but the next council should not be held obligated to whatever staff wants you to approve tonight. It should not be binding. I don't think it is binding. So, why try to force something onto the next council that they most likely are not going to follow, and that probably will change. I'd also suggest item SP3, which is the tax levy. And I do know, I understand, there was a reduction in the amount of the property tax, if I understand that correctly, that is. There is, however, still an unnecessary tax increase. And I want it recorded in the minutes that the city manager stated in a public ward meeting, actually it was a 3-ward meeting, that she would publish a budget memo summarizing full-time staff positions that could be eliminated, or at least a list of potential staff reductions and an explanation of what, if any, repercussions there would be with those reductions and what that would cause in the way of city operations. The city manager did not prepare that budget memo. At least I never saw it. I don't know if that was an internal memo just to the aldermen, but we never saw it as the public, which in my book is a real slap in the face to the aldermen and the citizens who requested it. Lastly, I have time, R2. So, they slipped this back into the council budget for decorum at virtual meetings.
Wrap up very quickly, please.
Yeah, I know, but you gave time to other people.
Yeah, I know, but could you wrap up? Wrap it up, please.
So the one thing that jumps out to me is on page...
Our next speaker is Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown, you have 3 minutes.
Mayor Pro, I don't believe Mr. Brown is on the call.
No, thank you. Leslie Shad, you have 3 minutes.
I am just here in support. I'm a resident of the 3rd Ward. I'm just in support of the Natural Areas Ordinance, and that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shad. Appreciate it. And our final speaker tonight is Jamie Robbins. Jamie, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Just
welcome.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, Alderfolk. I want to commend you all for your perseverance at reducing the tax levy at the last meeting. It was quite a struggle. Unfortunately, in the rush of the meeting, the calculation of the tax levy turned out to be incorrect, requiring you to revisit the matter tonight. There's a silver lining, however, which is that you can consider another source of funding. There's currently at least $600,000 in the Fleet Maintenance Fund as of the end of September. And this balance will only grow over time because it's the result of the fleet's fuel costs and repair costs being much lower than budget. So in January 2021, 600,000 of this surplus, which was originally came from the general fund, can be transferred back to the general fund in lieu of an equivalent amount of the city's corporate levy, which could then be reduced tonight from $6,230,957 to $5,612,400 on page 2 of Ordinance 126-0-20 for a total levy of $33,135,092. Please note that the exhibits to the ordinance do not reflect the budget that was passed on November 23rd. They are actually numbers from the memos on the 9th of November and are internally inconsistent. Regarding the agenda item S2, I've sent you all a proposal that could make it more productive, and I'm happy to provide more information if desired. I thank you all and wish you all a safe and happy and productive holidays.
Jamie, thank you very much. With that, that is the conclusion of public comment. I appreciate everyone's input. Moving into our agenda, is there somebody who wishes to move SP1?
SP1, the Reparations Subcommittee recommends the City Council discuss the local reparation proposed restorative housing program. This is for discussion.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Assistant City Manager Richardson, City Manager Starley, how would you like to proceed?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Suffredin and members of the City Council. I'm here as the staff liaison to the Reparations Subcommittee. I will ask our chair of the subcommittee, would you like for us to go into discussion, or would you want me to do a brief presentation similar to what we had at the previous meeting?
If you don't mind, presentation, and then I'll start discussion after that.
Okay, thank you. Give me 1 second while I have the screens up. Okay. Let's see. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Oh, sorry. Sure. Okay, so I will make this not as lengthy, but I wanted to go a brief overview of the memo that kind of spells out the reparations program. One, I would like to begin by saying that this is from funding that will be coming from our cannabis retail occupation tax, which we start receiving our 3% share beginning in July of 2020. Unfortunately, due to state law, we are not able to provide publicly an exact number for how much we've collected in the tax because we only currently have one dispensary. And so we are not able to share that number with the public. However, what we can say is based on the revenue we are receiving, we will begin to be able to support the first initiative, which we'll discuss this evening, sometime in 2021. As you know, the council passed this resolution for us to look at 2 areas. One is housing assistance and relief initiatives for Black Evanston residents, as well as economic development programs and opportunities for Black residents and entrepreneurs in Evanston. This 2 recommendations came from a report given by the Equity and Empowerment Commission when they did community engagement around this topic, when they were asked by Alderman Simmons to support her efforts in discussing, at the time they were called solution only, but then became reparations. And so from that, these are the two areas of focus that the City Council directed this subcommittee to focus on, and that is what we're doing tonight. So what I would like to say is that our restorative housing reparation program is the first initiative. Not saying that we have way more to go with housing, but this would be the first program ready to go. As you know, the subcommittee is made up of aldermen in the 2nd, 5th, and 8th, and 8th Ward, which is Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Simmons, and Alderman Rainey. This program will be looking at home ownership, home improvement, and mortgage assistance. Currently, we have this program budgeted for $400,000. Now, this is the initial budget that may change depending on the demand. So home ownership is very easy. We want people to come into Evanston. We would like for people to be able to purchase a home. And one of the barriers that we do recognize is that affordability to have a down payment. And so this program will provide eligible Black Evanstonians with down payment, closing cost assistance to purchase real estate property located within the Evanston city limits. The home ownership assistance may be no greater than $25,000 and may be layered with other city and external programs which the recipient is eligible for. So that includes anything from HUD or the state of Illinois. And also the homeowner must occupy the subject property as their principal residence. So this cannot be a property that they do not live in. And again, we look at the objectives, which will be consistent amongst the 3 programs, is that we're encouraging the revitalization, preservation, and stabilization of Black owner-occupied homes in Evanston. To increase home ownership and to build the wealth of Black Evanstons, and to build intergenerational equity amongst Black Evanston. The property eligibility, again, must be within Evanston city limits. The property may be a single family residence, a condo, a townhome, or even a multi-unit dwelling. And then funding can be used towards closing costs, as we said. As discussed, the distribution of the funds, all funds must be paid directly to the lending institution at the time of closing of the property. And you're going to find that consistent through the other programs is that we do not give funding directly to the individual. And we do this because unlike the federal government, we don't have the ability to not tax on that dollar amount. And what we do in doing our research, what we found that if individual did receive this as a grant or any other form from the city, that will be looked upon as an additional income, and that may also impact other programs that they will be eligible for. And so in order to get around that, we would have to pay directly to the lender. The other program is home improvement. So another thing that we heard initially was about the ability to improve one home and the access to funding to do so. Anecdotally, we recognize that for people of color, it is much harder, even with good credit at times, to get financial backing from a financial institution to do home improvements, such as modernization of their kitchen, which add value to their home, or any other additions. And so this will allow for individuals who are interested in doing improvements to their home, do it be for repair or improvement or modernization, they too will get up to $25,000 for this and can be layered with other programs that they are eligible for. So we have a listing of eligibility requirements that include, again, interior and exterior remodeling or beautification. Also, we're looking at any type of alleviation of physical hardship for disabled or elderly, structural, electrical, mechanical, and other types of life safety corrections. And anything regarding like a roof or siding replacement that has a use of life. And then again, we're looking at conservation programs that they may want to utilize this funding for HVAC replacement. and creation of a new or additional habitable space. Now, with this program, we will be working with the individual and their supplier or vendor. So if there's any pre-construction costs or payment, they have up to $10,000 of the funding to pay that upfront. And payment will be scheduled and require documentation as they move forward. And finally, we have the mortgage assistance program, which would be eligible for anyone who would like additional support for mortgage principal, interest, and or late penalties. Again, it's up to $25,000 and may be layered with other city or external programs. So for this individual, if they are eligible, will receive funds up to $25,000 that can go directly to their mortgage lender servicer, pending verification of mortgage payment. So in discussion, looking at other programs, we wanted to make this as easy as possible. So certain things that we eliminated is if someone is doing a program or improvement to their home, that we will waive any type of city related permit fees, as we do not want this to be another way for city to gain revenue. We want this again to be able to limit some of the barriers. So we have stated if it is a city permit, we will waive that fee. Outside external permits that may be required, we are not able to condition that, but if we can work with those individuals, we will try to waive those as well. An individual must be at least 18 years of age and can prove that they have a direct descendant of Evanston who is Black, who resided in Evanston between 1919 to 1969. And you will see in the packet today that we have a really lengthy and well documented research paper that was created by our own Dino Robinson of Shorefront Legacy and Dr. Jeannie Thompson of Evanston History Center. They spent a number of weeks into months preparing that document that really was able to give us an understanding of the history behind some housing discrimination and other discrimination that were acknowledged that the city either was aware of, even if they weren't the ones who were executing those policies, but did nothing to stop those wrongdoings, as well as programs that we ourselves initiated. I would recommend, if anyone are interested, to please read that document. It is a wealth of information, and I really appreciate the work and just the partnership with the the Shorefront Legacy, as well as the Evanston History Center. We would not, as staff, been able to do without their support. With that being said, there are still areas of discussion that we're still trying to work through. One of those areas is administration of the program. These are things that we are still working with the subcommittee to flesh out about how we're going to be able to support this work. It's not just the execution of the application and verification, but also assisting individuals with putting this application together, how they're able to locate the documentation. We want to make sure that we are not creating even more barriers for individuals. So trying to be thoughtful and making sure the application process doesn't become its own self-burdensome for individuals that they would be discouraged to not apply. So we're looking at, should we hire a part-time individual that will manage the program, partner with a financial institution or a non-for-profit, and then looking at a hybrid of a part-time and external partner to assist with this distribution of funds. Whatever that might be, right now we have not identified the funding, if it will come out of reparations fund or some other fund, but that is something that we will still need to discuss. And then again, developing the application, working in collaboration with the Evanston History Center and Shorefront to assist us with the application process, and making sure that we have a easily accessible documentation for individuals to be able to verify if they qualify. And then creating a committee that would be a subcommittee of the reparations committee that you all have, that a committee that was passed by the city council as a standing committee, making sure that we have the community as involved in this as well, and being a part of review and any other type of oversight that needs to happen while we continue on the committee level to look at programming, expand, and try to ensure that we can do more with reparations beyond just this singular program that we're presenting tonight. So with that, I will hand it back over to the chair, Alderman Simmons.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson, for your hard work, and to Tashik and to Nick Cummings. Sarah Flax has been a tremendous help as well. Kimberly mentioned Dino Robinson and his partner on the research paper at the Evanston History Museum or Center. Thank you all for your partnerships in getting us this far. Thank you to Cobra and NARC. And thank you to the residents that have been engaged and weighed in on this process. Thank you goes back to last summer in 2019 when we went through a public process and heard from the residents dozens of recommendations on how we might move forward with reparations, what reparations could be for us in Evanston. And it was from those dozens of recommendations that the commission made the recommendation with our approval that we advance housing and economic development as our priorities. And housing was the most recommended remedy. It is a path towards building wealth, and the case for reparations in Evanston is found in our housing, our historic housing policy, zoning, other discriminating practices that stripped wealth away from Black residents in Evanston. So housing is an appropriate remedy to pursue. And the amount of work that has gone in from our staff to get us to this point is just incredible and really appreciated. We meet every month. Initially, we were meeting more often than that, but we're meeting monthly. And for those that are just tuning in, we do give a monthly financial update based on the information that we're able to provide. And that includes our contributions that have been given to the fund by residents and organizations in town. I'd like to take this moment to give a public thank you to St. Nick's Church in Evanston for your generous contributions to reparations here, as well as Dear Evanston and many other individual residents that have begun to contribute to the fund. And I will say that cash payment, it was brought up in our public comment. It was one of many, many recommendations. And I recommend that if you're interested in learning more about what the community said, that you look at our reparation committee page, which is on our City of Evanston website. The other thing that I'd like to say is that this is it's overdue, it's complex work. There's a high demand and little resource to meet the actual need to repair damages in the Black community. But a local reparation initiative alone will not be enough. That this is a huge step, the first step in American history to have a funded, targeted reparation program for Black residents. But we also are in support as we passed a resolution in 2002, led by then Alderman Lionel Jean-Baptiste and supported by Alderman Rainey and others that were on the board at that time to support HR 40. And so we still remain in support of HR 40. Believe that we'll see it has more support and co-sponsors than ever in its history in 30 years. And these other reparative actions are going to be necessary for us to get that full repair that we're hopeful for, and that is justice for Black residents. But right now, we're pursuing housing remedy, and I'm hoping that we can have support among council for this. I've lost track of the amount of calls from residents that are interested in how they might receive this reparative benefit to help them access home ownership or to help them sustain their current home ownership. The fact that this $25,000 or up to $50,000 per household could help with acquisition or with some wealth building initiative as it relates to home ownership is incredible. And you can also pair on other programs and benefits and grants that are available, not only here at the City of Evanston, but you'll learn more about our goals to work with a financial institution. Alderman Braithwaite will talk more about that. But we also had a State of Black Housing report that was done by Mark Austin. That's on our website as well, if you weren't able to see that, on how housing and wealth building through home ownership is our most likely path as a Black community that already has barriers, have started with less. We don't have the benefit of generational wealth transfer. We have barriers to accessing fair financial products. So we are in need of this repair, and it is what we've committed to here in Evanston. A couple other things. I mentioned that we give the financial update monthly, and we've been working on this for a year now. We've been working with community feedback. Every meeting that we have is public, and we take in our comments from the residents, and we consider that as we advance the work. One thing that Mr. Sutton said that I continue to hear and I appreciate, and we're thinking about this, we will have a subcommittee that works more on how we deliver reparations. And I hear you saying that seniors have been here during the period of injury, and we need to think more about how we will prioritize the reparation benefit, since there is so little resource right now. But the good news is residents and organizations are excited about this and have started to contribute and are preparing contributions to this fund as we get closer to having a finalized policy. And with that, look at ways to support. So I think I'll pause there and ask Alderman Braithwaite to share the updates with our goals for the financial institution. And then I would like to get back to the second piece of our presentation that spoke about program support, possibly internally or in partnership.
Sure. Thank you very much, Alderman Simmons. To our city council staff and residents who are paying attention. First, Alderman Simmons, let me just acknowledge you for the bold leadership on this issue, as well as your commitment. We all understand this is not easy work, as we don't have a template to follow. And you have been courageous when we needed you to be courageous and steady with the communication and your efforts. And at the same time, contributing to the momentum that we are seeing, not only nationwide, but here in the state of Illinois and even our partners in the city of Chicago. And I know that they often consult with you for your leadership and insight that you provide. I share that for a reason, because it has to be said. It has to be said that we had the support of almost all of our city council members. It has to be said that our staff, even throughout the pandemic, working on furloughs, have been consistent with this effort. And it's not easy work. So forgive me if I take too long, but it has to be said. And while the whole nation is watching what we're doing, there are people that are waiting for this to fail. It is a bit discouraging, and I do value all the feedback. It doesn't stop the work. If anything else, I'll tell you, it encourages what we're doing. But for our Black residents, I just ask for your patience. It's clear, it's in front of you where the revenue is coming from. One dispensary right now, one dispensary, that's where it's coming from. And we hope and pray as we are building this thing out, as we are continuing with the momentum, that we will have donations from our residents coming in that will help with the repair of our community. through Alderman Simmons and Dino Robinson, we have the support of the Evanston Community Foundation that again will open up another fund to start taking in donations. And there's more work to be done. So for Alderman Rainey and the members of our city council that continue to support these efforts, I'm looking forward to getting into this discussion and moving forward. So I'll do a quick update on our financial institution and look forward to the other members of city council and what they have to say. Along the path of establishing the application, we have currently met with, thank you Alderman Rainey for bringing one of the institutions to the table, 2 institutions in town that will have the ability to partner with us as we seek to execute the housing remedy. We're looking for someone not only that has a proven track record, but also the knowledge of working with movements such as this. So we are in the final stages of our second conversation. We have scheduled, or we look to schedule another discussion with our legal team as well as Sarah Flax from our community development, particularly looking at validating what makes a low to medium income resident. One of the criteria that we're exploring, so we look beyond the individual, but really the collective effort is, can we find an institution that is willing to invest CRA credits in the target area? We're looking for an institution that is willing to brand with us as we build out this program and put their name and financial institution behind us, as well as bring additional resources above that $400,000 that we've committed this year, above that $10 million goals that we're looking to reinvest in our Black community. And I think that we're getting close. So hopefully Alderman Simmons and to Alderman Rainey and to the members of City Council, after our meeting in the next couple of weeks, that we will be able to come with a very solid proposal of what they would be willing to do. I think this is a good place for me to pause and again, acknowledge our staff that's working very tirelessly on this, as well as the residents and our group of advisors that pray for us, provide really harsh criticism and force us to think critically, as we are the only city that has found a dedicated source and actually have some things that are put on paper that will move us forward. So thank you very much, Alderman Simmons. Alderman Rainey, did you have anything you wanted to share?
You're muted, Alderman Rainey.
We're being somewhat constrained by the governor's inability to distribute the social equity licenses that were supposed to be issued early this year. Because when we were projecting our revenues, we were counting on at least two dispensaries and other adult cannabis operations in the city of Evanston. So we're working on, making sure that some of those licenses are released. But in the meantime, with the expansion of our current dispensary and an average of probably $40,000 a month from the current dispensary, increasing after the expansion to maybe 50 to 60, we're going to do very well with just one dispensary. I'm not concerned about that, but I am concerned about the lack of the dispensary license to those, especially to those who were promised that. I mean, this is a rather broken promise by the state. So we're working with others on that issue. But I mean, this is a wonderful program, and as Alderman Braithwaite said, Alderman Simmons has been a champion, and I thank her very much. And I know that even though she's not going to be with us after May, she's going to be on this project 100%. Isn't that right, Alderman Simmons?
That is right. That is right.
All right, is there, Alderman Renee, are you finished?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. If there's anybody else who'd like to speak, I'd like to piggyback quickly on something that Alderman Rainey said. I think it would be appropriate for us to revisit our zoning as it relates to cannabis businesses, since we established that before we had determined what the purpose would be for that tax revenue. And it may be time for us to take a look. Other states' experiences that 5 years is what it takes to get to a mature marketplace. And so we have time, but we should also, I think, make sure that our city is as attractive as possible to investment. So I would like to propose that one of the things we do on the revenue side is take another look at how we've zoned for these businesses and see if we can do that in a more meaningful way. Alderman Rainey.
Yeah, we did that. Almost all of our districts, except ours, are special use districts for dispensaries. We did that.
I'm sorry.
They
I was going to say
special use.
Yeah, and as you recall, we made it more restrictive than it necessarily needs to be when we brought in some of the daycares. And I think if we're going to be committed to this revenue source, we need to be as liberal and open as possible to potential sites for dispensaries.
And what did you mean by that, though?
Well, I'm saying let's make sure that we are being as open and liberal as possible in our zoning. As you recall, there was some discussion of whether or not businesses wanted to be in the Noy Street corridor, the Forest Maple corridor. When we brought daycare centers in instead of schools for the buffer, we discounted a lot of potential places where investors may want to locate dispensaries in Evanston. And so what I'm saying is, on the revenue side, we should make sure that the city of Evanston is as receptive as possible as these licenses are released and people are free to make decisions on where to invest, that Evanston has as many potential locations for dispensaries as it can.
Are you suggesting we reduce from 500 feet to, I mean, because we can't add any more zoning districts.
Right. What I'm saying is, as you recall, when we did the zoning initially, it was before we had determined what the purpose of the cannabis tax revenue would be, right? We were looking at a zoning map without having determined the purpose yet. Now that we know what the purpose is, now that we have an emphasis placed on the revenue side, I think we should revisit for discussion where dispensaries could be located in the city of Evanston. If we want to do ancillary businesses like social use spaces, which may help with an increase in revenue, I think we should look at all that. The goal is to increase the amount of revenue going into this fund. And since we've determined that cannabis tax revenue is the source, we should do what we can. What's happening at the state level is outside of our control, but it is within our control to make Evanston as receptive a place as possible for those types of businesses.
Well, when you talk to Verano and Medman, they say that Evanston is the most cannabis friendly city in the state almost because of what we did with the zoning. I mean, we did change the zoning after we made the zone. I mean, the zoning was very restrictive. We had only dispensaries could be in the industrial districts. I think Johanna can speak to this. We had it only in the I districts, and I think maybe in an M overlay or something. And then we opened it up to all the CB, D, and all those districts. Yeah. Johanna, can you speak to this?
Yeah. And I guess while you're, in Alderman Sutton, with all due respect, I think, and we did this work, she's correct, when we reduced it from 750 to down to 500, and we've identified certain areas. And I think because we have a special use project or process that will allow us all to be mindful of these when they come in line, I think we may be a little bit premature in making additional changes.
I made the reference.
Oh, no, I mean, we made it. We did the work is what I'm pointing out, because there are going to be people listening, and I don't want it to distract from the main topic. So I think it's an important discussion to have right now while we have everyone's attention. But I am supporting you because we did make the change. And there's also what we don't know, which is a delicate balance to how many dispensaries one town can have in order for them all to be successful. And I think because it's such a brand new industry and we have one already to the west of us in Skokie, we just want to make sure that anyone that invests that type of capital, we know that they're going to be successful. And based on the process that we have in place, I think we have all the mechanisms in place without making any additional changes. And I do want to get back to the topic.
All we need are some licensees. We don't have.
That's it.
Right, no, absolutely. And that's outside of our control. But, you know, the bills will not voted to allow cannabis businesses to operate in Wilmette. We've got the business in Skokie, which, like we've seen, is a very impressive structure and will likely do well. I just want to be sure that the city of Evanston, in order to maximize this revenue, which we have put towards this purpose, is a place that is welcoming and considered worthy of investment as this market matures. Again, it's a 5-year likely process. But that's all I'm saying, is that I want to make sure that the city of Evanston is putting itself in a position to capture as much cannabis tax revenue as possible.
I agree.
And thank you. I just want to jump in. And say, Alderman Sufferton, I really appreciate you looking at ways to expand the revenue. And if maybe a memo is in order, I don't know what area there is to expand dispensaries, but I would love to know that. So I support the direction of your recommendation. I do remember we had that discussion, but if there is opportunity that we're missing due to our zoning that's still appropriate in line with the will of the community and where dispensaries are, I think we should explore that. So I don't know if just a memo is in order before we have it on an agenda item, but thank you for looking at ways to expand the revenue, which expands repair in the Black community.
All right, does anybody else have a comment? Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, aside from the council or the committee who has been working on this, I do want to thank Gino, and I'm skipping the lady's name, I'm sorry, from the History Center. The report was very impressive, and I think will be just, even past reparations, really great history of our community. So I thank you all for the time you spent doing that as volunteers. And the only thing I will say, I know this is, you all are going through more. I'm looking forward to hearing about the bank. Hopefully, I know Autumn Rainey, you mentioned early on about trying to find some banks that actually are going to put some money in, because we know the banks played a huge part in the redlining and, not giving loans and all that. So I'm looking forward to hear from the bank. I also, although they're not a ton anymore, I would love to see if we can do some work with a Black-owned or minority-owned bank as well. Maybe not to put the money in, but just for some loan products. And then my last comment is, thank you, Alderman Simmons, for referencing this. I am also concerned about the elderly. I realize there's some type of order that's happening here. But when I think about, our long-standing, elders in the Black community, for instance, Bennett and so forth, I realize they're probably not, looking to buy a home. And they also, have suffered more direct harm than any of us. So I would be looking to see and trying to follow along with what you all discuss in terms of remedying the harm for those folks who, while they're eligible, they're not interested, or, maybe their preference isn't a loan or remodeling their house in the first iteration of the repair that's going on here. So thank you for mentioning that you're working on that. And hopefully all those who have concerns will continue to follow along and bring their concerns to the committee or back to council, so we can make sure the process is open and everyone's voice is heard.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Alderman Fleming.
All right, if there's no further comment, this has been for discussion. Alderman Braithwaite.
One of the things that was brought up earlier in a conversation that I had with Alderman Simmons, we realized that part of our drag is that we only have one dispensary right now. And I think Alderman Sufferton, you used the words that it's outside of our control. I share this to the group, and I don't know if anyone has any ideas, but I think if there's any pressure that we can put on the state to get going. I mean, to my knowledge, we're the only ones right now in the state of Illinois that has rolled out a program. We have a dedicated fund. I know of at least two residents and one person who has Evanston roots that has applied for the application. And like most things, it's very vague and just a abyss of a lot of information that's flying around. It's not really leading us down any course. So I would look for any thoughts and ideas of how we can advocate to the state and those that are employed and contracted to bring these dispensaries online.
Well, I don't think that the state wants there to be a delay either. It's just where we are. And that's what I mean when I say it's outside of our control. The city of Evanston going to Springfield and saying, hurry up, isn't going to move things. So there is a bottleneck there. And again, I just encourage us to take a longer view here, because this new industry is going to take time to mature. And I want to just make sure, especially since Evanston has decided that this revenue needs to go to this purpose, that we are maximizing the amount of revenue. And to your point, that may not be trying to attract the most dispensaries. It may be making sure that dispensaries that we have are in the best position to succeed. I mean, our goal needs to be to fund this outside of whatever we get from philanthropy, because we have an obligation to make sure that it's funded with revenue that is within our control as a government. And so that's what I think we need to work on, is making sure that we maximize that opportunity. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you. I agree with both you and Alderman Braithwaite. I think the goal is to have successful dispensaries and not cause anyone, have them all be robust businesses rather than have too many. But clearly what we want to do is maximize the amount that we can extract from this market, because this is our funding source. But I did want to comment just briefly on the work of the Reparations Committee, and particularly the history that was developed by Dino Robinson and the historian from the History Center. I just want to say thank you to the members who served on the Reparations Committee and to the city staff on all of this. It's an enormous amount of work, and as Alderman Rusiman said, it's very complex, and there are just many threads here that need to be incorporated. But in particular, I really want to thank the committee for having that history prepared, because that's the thing that most Evanstonians have no ability to have no real ability to access those documents and those sources, and to see written out in a comprehensive form, and it's very clearly the history of institutional racism here in Evanston. And so I think that's one of the most interesting parts of reading all of this. And I look forward to looking ahead as to what this reparations subcommittee does moving forward, and what the council does moving forward. But that report to me is should be taught in our high school, really, and distributed throughout Evanston. Every community should have a history of its racial history like that. And we are really lucky to have Dino Robinson and the History Center here in Evanston. Thank you all.
Alderman Ravel.
Well, I just want to echo the comments of my colleagues. Appreciation for this really amazing and unfortunate history that we have here in Evanston, but huge thank you to the Reparations Committee, and particularly Alderman Rue Simmons, for really advancing a program, a really wonderful program, I think, that's going to help address the harm that was caused. And I think this report really demonstrates why the housing program that you all have been developing is really on target for directly addressing the harms that were experienced by Black residents over our history. So I fully appreciate and support the direction of the committee, and I look forward to hearing what develops with this potential financial institution that might be a partner with us. I think that's a very promising development as well.
All right. Is there any other members seeking recognition? Otherwise,
I have one thing, Alderman Shepherd.
Alderman
I just
Simmons.
wanted to say that, you know, that we have to consider that the injuries are widespread as Black people, and that what I'll do to keep the community informed is provide a report at our subcommittee on the progress or ways to support HR 40, which is a federal reparation program. And also the state of Illinois introduced a reparation program in July of this year. So I'm very much updated on those policy introductions, serve on the legislative committee for NCOBRA, and I'll add that to my report so that residents know how they might be able to support reparations at other levels. And then one last thing I wanted to say about the mortgage or the financial institution that we hope to partner with, and some of the staff recommendations about how we might facilitate the program. And the financial institution would be a great partner, and not for a fee, in my opinion, but a great and appropriate partner to help us with the application process, since they would actually be the mortgage lender, and they would have new customers or consumers through our reparation program. So I just wanted to put that as a note for staff to take as we continue this discussion in committee further.
Mm-hmm. And to Mayor Pro Tem and the rest of City Council, I hope that maybe in 4 months that we can come back and give another update. A lot of focus and time and energy has been devoted to getting this housing piece correct, because that is what we heard so much from the residents. And obviously with the historical reference that you have, we're putting a lot of effort, but there are some other members of the community that are working just as hard. There are two other stakeholder groups that, as you attend the larger community meetings, they have been giving updates. So we do have an education committee that are working on educational processes that will have an impact to our districts citywide. In addition to that, we have a group of Black professionals that are also meeting, networking and getting to know each other, as well as the future goal of coming up with policies to help assist small businesses in town. So much more to report. We're really glad with the progress that we've made, yet we realize again that the work is not done. So we'd love to come back in 2 or 3 months before Alderman Simmons leaves us to give an update.
One last thing, sorry. So we'll definitely be back before I leave, that's no doubt. But I wanted to get Jenny Thompson's name right. I did not want to just kind of glaze over that. The amount of work that she did on a volunteer basis is absolutely appreciated. So thank you, Jenny Thompson. And then to Alderman Nguyen's recommendation that this should be taught in our Evanston school, you're absolutely right. And that was part of the recommendation that Alderman Lionel Jean-Baptiste made in 2002. And by your recommendation, we will pass this document along to Evanston Township High School for consideration. Make sure that the reparation group that's working on education has it. And also our own Malika Gardner here in town has been advocating for complete Black history in our school system. So thank you, Alderman Nguyen, for raising that up. And I have no further comment.
All right. So with that, we should move on to item SP2. My understanding is there may be a motion here. Alderman Nguyen, will you please move item SP2?
Yes, item SP2 is staff, excuse me, is that this is resolution 129R20 committing to funding of the general fund reserves by 2025. This reference was made by Alderman Fisk, and she in particular wanted to be part of the discussion of this. And my understanding is that because this is a special order of business, it has to be treated as such and treated slightly differently. And my apologies for checking on what that is. So a special order, as we all know, can't be held or tabled. But if the council votes to suspend the rules, we can hold it to the next meeting. And I do think in light of the fact that we have two council members who are not present and the mayor is not present, I would move to suspend the rules in order for us to hold this. So I move to suspend.
Second.
Mr. Clerk, unless there's any discussion, Mr. Clerk, can you take the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Yes, Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson is no longer here. Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey. I'm sorry, Alderman Rainey, I don't see you. Okay, aye, okay. And then Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right, so that's the motion to suspend the rules. Is there another motion?
I move to hold this item until the next meeting.
All right. Mr. Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Yes. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
And Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right, so that passes. What are we down to here? 7-0. And then we'll move on to item SP3. Alderman Fleming, do you mind moving item SP3?
SP3 is SP3 Ordinance 126-0-20, amending Ordinance 112-0-20 concerning levying taxes in the city of Evanston, county of Cook, and state of Illinois for fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2021. Staff requests suspension of the rules for introduction and action of this ordinance tonight.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. I see Hitesh and Desai and Kate Lewis Lincoln. Is there anyone on council who would like to open the discussion? Or Hitesh, if you'd like to take it away, please.
Sure.
Go.
Thank you, Alderman Suffredin. Good evening, members of the City Council. While we were making the changes in the last meeting, we had like what we call a mathematical error, and which resulted in the overall levy to be higher by 500,000. And when we looked at the council's intent that they wanted only 1% tax.
Chief Cook, thank you. There you go. The floor is yours.
Okay, so we looked at the video and we knew that the city council's intent was to only increase the levy by 1%, which is roughly 571,000. And then we added up the numbers, we put it in our new world system, and we realized that because of this 500,000 difference, we were off. So obviously the total levy is going down compared to what we originally passed earlier. And with the loss factor, the total number is down by 515,464,000, then adopted in the ordinance 112-020. So that's why we have come here and asked for the suspension of the rules, because we have to file the tax levy before the last Tuesday in December.
All All right. So do
So
we,
I move we suspend the rules.
is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Mr. Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Yes. Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
and Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All right. Just real quick, I would vote no on this if we were with a full complement of aldermen. Since we're not, and the only practical effect of that would be to force us to all come back for another meeting, I will vote aye this evening. With that, Mr. Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming,
No.
and Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right, so that passes 6-1. And we are now going to move on to the consent agenda. If you all want to take a look and see if there's anything that needs to be removed, we can go ahead. Alderman Braithwaite.
Yes, I regret that I was not in committee, but there is item A7
Okay.
that I would like to remove.
All right. I would like to remove item A2. Is there anybody else?
I would like to remove R2 and H1.
You and H1. All right.
Did we need to have A16 off, or we had to take it off for a vote in committee? So I imagine we need to do that again.
All right. That requires suspension of the rules. So A16.
Yeah, and did you get A5 off? Alderman Rainey put that in committee. Is it okay now?
If nobody has any objections, I just wanted to, explain it.
Oh no, that's a fantastic. Yeah.
I know, but I'm not sure if members who were not on AMPW have any questions.
Well, why don't we pull it off so
Okay.
that there's a proper room for discussion.
Mayor Pro Tem, item P4 needs to be removed so that there can be suspension of the rules.
Oh, now P4 for suspension of the rules.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. And then,
If it's just suspension of the rules for those few items, you could just move a motion ahead of the consent to suspend the rules for those items and then just pass them on consent. If there's no further discussion other than suspension of the rules.
thank you, Clerk Reed. Much appreciated. All right. So does anybody have anything else they want to pull? Otherwise, we can run this consent agenda with the exception of items A7, A2, R2, H1, A16, A5, and P4.
Yes,
not,
but I'm sorry, Alderman Sufferton, but if we, maybe I'm a little bit confused. So P4 would go on consent if we suspended the rules first.
According to Clerk Reed.
Yes, right. So, okay. No, I understand that. So, but first, are we going to gather the ones that need suspension of the rules?
We could do that as P4 and A16, right? And then that's all there is. P4 and A16 are the only two that require suspension of the rules.
Those are the only two I've seen.
Okay. All right. So with that, is there a motion to suspend the rules for items P4 and A16?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Mr. Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
and Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right. We have Alderman Sufferton is also an aye. So that's
apologies.
No problem. That's a 7-0 vote to suspend the rules. Somebody move items P4 A16, please.
Did you skip over A7?
No. Does A7 require suspension rules as well?
No, we're
just doing the two.
I think at this point you're just moving the consent agenda.
Yeah. If you just move the consent agenda now, everything can go.
Gotcha. All right. Then I move the consent agenda. Does somebody second?
Second.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
And Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right. So on a 7-0 vote, the consent agenda passes. Next up is item A2, approval of BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity. Is there a motion?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
I abstain.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
And Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right. On a 6-0 vote, item A2 passes Evanston City Council. Next up is item A7. Is that Alderman Rainey's?
A5.
A5. I'm sorry. A5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff is recommending that the council authorize the manager to execute a sole source agreement with Modern Fold for the replacement of the movable partition for the Levy Senior Center's Linden Room in the amount of $70,933. I would like to move approval and then address this.
Second.
Okay. May I speak?
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
The funding is going to be provided from capital improvements, as your memo states. But then the Levy Foundation, the Levy Center Foundation, is going to pay not only for this item, but for all the additional items totaling approximately $300,000 as they renovate the Linden Room. They have just completed renovating last year the Levy Center library. And their next project after this will be the fitness room. So this is a really important project. And the memo, I thought, sort of looked like we were sharing the Levy Foundation was sharing the costs with the city, but really the Levy Foundation is carrying the large financial load on this. And they're really committed to making the center, maintaining the center as a beautiful space. It was built as a beautiful space, and they're doing the maintenance on it. And this really should be a model for a lot of our centers. So anyway, the reason this is being pulled out of the whole project is because there's this huge lead time of like 3 months to 4 months from when you order this kind of partition to when it's delivered. So that is why it's been pulled out. It is a sole source, and the Levy Foundation will be paying for full price, the total cost. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
All right. Is there any further comments on item A5? If not, Mr. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
I think she stepped away. Can you come back to her?
Yes. Alderman.
I'm here. Aye. I'm sorry. I'm here.
No problem.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
and Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right, on a 7-0 vote, item A5 passes. Real quick, I would like to do some housekeeping and make a motion to reconsider item P1. Is there a second?
Can you give us some background?
Sure. We need to re-vote, and one of our colleagues needs to abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, City Council, I believe it should have been removed off the consent agenda, and mistakenly it was not.
So we need to make a motion to reconsider? All right, so I move to reconsider P1.
Second.
There's no discussion. Mr. Cook, can you please take the roll on item P1?
Yes, Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
I abstain.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite and Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye. Aye.
All right, on a vote of 6-0-1, item P1 passes. Item A7, Alderman Fleming.
Oh, are we actually going to?
Oh, we're going to vote on the actual thing. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's run it again, please.
Move approval then of P1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Clerk read.
Okay. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
I abstain.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
And Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
On a vote of 6-0-1, item P1 has now passed. All right, item A7, Alderman Fleming.
A7?
Approval of a contract award with Christy Weber and Company Landscape. Is that yours?
I didn't pull that off.
Oh, who pulled that off? Alderman Braithwaite. I'm sorry. Alderman Braithwaite. Item A7.
Right, unfortunately, I had an appointment. I was late to AP&W, but I do want to make a point, and I don't know if staff can answer this. So I think when we see opportunities like this, particularly a contract that over the couple of years is going to be $100,000, that we make a effort to utilize a local business. We spend a lot of time going back and forth regarding Crown, looking at diversity spend, paying very close attention to the hours, the wages. This is a little bit different because it's maintenance, but I think not only is this important moving forward that we pay attention to for all of our facilities, but it's also good. It's a good local spend opportunity. So I don't know if this is time sensitive. I'm not one to hold things up. When I reviewed the list, there were a couple of businesses that I could think of that could very well execute this contract, who are actually living in town, paying taxes in town. And I won't minimize the impact to the surrounding community, but we're going into winter. And if there's an opportunity to revisit and identify a local contractor, that would be my goal, however it takes place. And again, I apologize that I wasn't at the meeting earlier to raise these concerns. For all I know, it could have been brought up.
All right, is there a motion?
Could we hear from staff if they did interview any local?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Suffredin, Alderman, Clerk Reed, and City Manager Sturley. When this went out for bid, it went out to, I think, 24 different companies, of which, and I'm counting as I'm looking at the memo here, I believe 5 of them were Evanston businesses, and
Was
none
that
of
in the memo date? I'm sorry, I saw the folks who responded. Did you include the names of who it went out to in the memo? I must have missed that.
No, that's a memo that the purchasing agent sends to staff. And that's why I have it in case these types of questions come up. But they were sent to several Evanston firms, Cardenas Landscaping, Diego and Gabby's Landscaping, Green Eden's Horticulture, Greenwise Organic Lawn Care, Nature's Perspective
on that list.
Yes, Nature's Perspective, Turf Care Landscaping, and they did not respond. And I'm not sure why. Some of them, Green Lawn Care indicated that they only do residential landscaping. Green Eden's Horticulture say they no longer do maintenance. They do design and installation of vegetable gardens. And then there was no response from the other four Evanston firms, including Nature's Perspective, Turf Care, Diego and Gabby's Landscaping, and Cardenas Landscaping.
And Dave, can you just, and this conversation is worthwhile, and I say to members council and also the residents, you know, just this month, within the last 30 days, we passed a very difficult budget. We know that staff contributed $1 million in furlough hours. We're going to see a small increase in our taxes. And so I'm really going to be paying close attention to this. So it's not my intention to hold it up, but I do want to make a point that these are the opportunities that we can spend money locally. And my question is, Dave, when did the application, or excuse me, when did the proposals go out to these companies? If you don't know, it's fine.
The bid was announced on October 22nd in Pioneer Press, uploaded to the city's bid and proposal webpage and Demand Star, and then sealed bids were due by November 17th.
Okay, so we were intentional about sending, but did they actually receive something in the mail? Maybe that's what I missed. I heard the round table, I heard our papers, but I didn't understand if they were sent directly to these companies.
And I do not have that information. Again, that's handled by the purchasing department, and I'm just looking at a memo that I have from the purchasing department.
Okay, well, I guess the only thing that I'll say is we still have a few months before we have to worry about real lawn maintenance going into the winter time. If there isn't a will to hold this up, then I'll just shut my mouth. But I will start keeping track of opportunities like this. And it was a difficult budget season finishing this up this year. And I just think we need to pay very close attention to these opportunities and not let them slip through our fingers. Thank you, Dave.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. I appreciate the attention you're giving this Alderman Braithwaite, but I think what I hear Director Stoneback saying is there were maybe up to a dozen or at least a half dozen Evanston firms that either were non-responsive, you know, not competitive, or declined to bid altogether. Maybe Alderman Braithwaite in MWEBE, we reach out to those and find out why this project was, if it was beyond their capacity or not, if they're not interested, if they're not doing maintenance anymore. Maybe we could find out more about why there wasn't interest, and we can find out from staff on maybe why they weren't responsive, if that is the case, if they even did submit a bid. But it seems that there was some participation from the Evanston vendors.
All right, is there any further discussion? If not, Mr. Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
And Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right, on a 7-0 vote, that item passes. Next up is item R2. Alderman Fleming, pull that one.
R2 is Resolution 126-R-20, amending City Council Rule 6-9 to include virtual platform meetings. This is for action.
All right, is there any discussion? Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, I know we had a long discussion about this last time. I guess, the rules are fine. The issue is that I think and I guess maybe the next council will have to deal with this, how we get back to, a little more civility. And I know Alderman Fisk had a long discussion about this at some point, but, even with the rules, I think the underlying issue just of the lack of civility is a bigger issue. So I know staff felt like they needed some real guidance and a rule to have to mute people and such, but hopefully as we go into the new year, we can think a little more creatively, or the new council, about how we're going to adjust to our virtual platform and everyone keeping within their time, using respectful language, X, Y, and Z. And ideally, I will encourage whoever the new mayor is to have a little more of a public-facing meetings. And so maybe some of those things where Ray and other folks are talking about having a dialogue can actually happen. But so I understand this. I'm going to vote against it because I think it just doesn't really get to what I would like it to address in terms of how our community is handling frustrations and.
All right, is there any other comments on item R1? If not, Mr. Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Quinn.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
No.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
And 6-1 vote, that item passes. And I apologize, I'm going out of sequence. The final item H1, Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, H1 is contract renewal for media presence behavioral health for critical health services. This contract is $143,333 from January 1st to December 31st, 2021 for action.
Second.
Again, we had a conversation about this. Unfortunately, I voted to support this, but I made some suggestions for what needed to be changed in the language. Looks like nothing has changed. And I appreciate Cindy Castro from Presence coming several times talking about the need for a little more flexibility in this contract, because part of what it was originally set up to do, they are unable to do because they do not have access to police records. And that's a whole other legal issue. As we go through the alternatives to 911 response, it would be great to either use this money or use this service as part of that, which I hope we can do. But looking at the contract, even just the first paragraph is pretty much null and void at this point. So as written, I'm not going to support it. I'm a little bit frustrated that staff did not change given the direction from our last meeting.
All right, Alderman Ravel.
Oh,
I might add.
I mean,
Director Ogbo, do you want to address that?
Absolutely. Okay. Good day, members of City Council. This is Ike Ogbo, Director, Health and Human Services Department. Minor revisions were indeed made to this contract. Just looking at it now, it looks like staff uploaded the former contract instead of the one that was revised. You made some revisions to 1.1, contract 1.3 and 2.1 by how we currently operate in regards to referral. So it looks like it was a mistake whereby the former contract was uploaded.
Alderman Fleming.
I appreciate that, but I can't see what the new language is, so that unfortunately doesn't help me right now in this move.
All right, Alderman Ravel, you had your hand up.
I was just going to ask Alderman Fleming if there were a way to just amend it, but it sounds like it was amended, but we just don't have a copy of that version.
Why don't we?
Mayor Pro Tem, I would ask staff if there's some time sensitivity to this, because actually none of us can vote for this if we don't have the accurate contract. So if there isn't time sensitivity, then we should hold this until we have all had an opportunity to read the correct contract.
Director Ogbo, you are frozen.
Right. Well, the contract actually ends December 31st. If we don't have a contract in place by January 1, I don't know how we will continue to offer the services that Amelia does. We can take a look at whether this can be extended till the next city council meeting. It'll be a conversation I can have with Amelia, but it was just have been uploaded revised sections.
It's
what was
hard
recommended. So
hard to hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Let's talk to our attorney, Ms. Gandersky.
Good evening, members of City Council, Mayor Pro Tem Kelly Gandersky, Corporation Counsel. Ike, might I suggest if we could just take a moment, is there a way for you to share your screen to show if there's just a minor revision, to show what those minor revisions were for the council?
Right, let me see if I can do that.
Would that be acceptable to the council if he could do that, if it's just a minor revision?
Fleming, what's your thought?
I mean, there was some, I guess if you consider it minor, there were 3 different sections that I asked to be revised. So if I can look at the screen, I mean, it's going to take me a minute to read it and process it, but I mean, I think Alderman Wynn's point was better. I mean, larger, which is we can't really vote on a contract we don't have. I mean, I don't, you know.
I'm sure that our partners at Alameda can be patient while we get the details of the contract without any lapse in service. I do think it is the will of the council to continue on, but we just want to make sure that we capture Alderman Fleming's points, as we did discuss it in great detail during our Human Services meeting.
Alderman Rainey.
Is there, Kelly, is there a reason why we can't move to extend this contract for 1 month while we take a look at the new contract that we do not have before us?
Council can move to amend the resolution to include a revised version of 1 month, but whether Amita would agree to that or not, I don't know.
I think they would. If not,
speaking to Amita several times, they would like to continue the work. They actually, Cindy, who's the manager, would like to be able to expand on some of the work because, again, she's not able to do a large chunk of the work in which the contract is for based on these police reports. So she's been very creative in trying to expand what she wants to do, and she vocalized that several times. So I think she would be happy to extend for a month as we got the contract worked out, and even giving her more flexibility to execute, more of the community services that are needed. But I guess I don't feel great about trying. I'm looking at Ike's screen right now, which is just blank. I don't feel great about trying to read this now and, on the fly.
Then I would suggest the council.
January 31st.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Corporation Counsel, can you tell us what you just said?
You can just make a motion to amend the resolution to extend our current contract to end by January 31st.
Yes. I second the motion.
And then in the interim, then I can present the new contract for approval.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move that we extend this current contract to January 31st,
All right.
2021.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Clerk Reeves, could you please take the roll on that?
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Ray.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. And Alderman Braithwaite. sorry, I didn't catch. I don't have the full screen here. Alderman Braithwaite. Did we lose him?
He's on mute. Peter, you're on mute.
You want to give him a moment?
Sorry. Where are we? I stepped away.
We're voting on extending the current contract by a month.
Yes, aye.
All right, on a 7-0 vote, extend the contract to January 31st is passed. And I believe that is the end of our agenda. Next up is call the awards. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, I'll be brief. I want to wish our colleague Don Wilson a quick recovery. And I hope that everyone who is suffering from COVID right now has a quick recovery. I wish everyone a happy, healthy, and safe holiday. The importance right now is for all of us to stay the course and keep our eyes on the prize, which is the vaccine. So don't let your guard down. Take all the precautions that you can and share and spread the news with friends, because that's really important. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and we all want to make sure we get there together. Happy holidays, everyone.
Alderman Marie Simmons.
No report.
No report. Alderman Ravel.
I would just echo Alderman Nguyen's sentiments. Certainly looking forward to having Alderman Wilson back with us in hale and hearty, and wish everybody happy holidays.
All right, thank you. Alderman Reed.
Thank you. Yes, my best wishes for a speedy recovery to the Wilson family. And I would like to make a reference to the Administration and Public Works Committee for an ordinance that will provide for a fee for service for fire and rescue services delivered by the Evanston Fire Department to Northwestern University based on the cases that they serve there. And that's it.
Thank you, Alderman Reed. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fleming.
Alderman Fleming will be right back. She just lost power.
Okay. Oh, no. The comment letter. We just said we could do that. All right. Then who's next? Alderman Braithwaite. Also,
aye.
A positive statement at Call the Awards is always appreciated. So,
is that where we are? Oh, Jesus. I apologize. I had two things going on in the house. Your Call of the Awards, Alderman Sufferton?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I wanted to make a referral to plan development as an extension of the ADU resolution that we passed. I wanted to look at models that can be pre-approved. So I will send our staff examples that exist in other municipalities and bring it back to plan development. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we do have an executive session this evening. Playing the role of Alderman Wilson will be Alderman Ruth Simmons. If you could please lead us into executive session.
Absolutely. Am I off mute?
Yep.
Yes.
I move pursuant to 5 ILCS 120 et sec of the Open Meetings Act to proceed and to close executive session to discuss matters of real estate and executive session minutes.
Second.
Clerk Reeves, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming,
Last power.
Powers
oh,
up.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, that's right, and Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
All right, so with that, it's a 6-0 vote to convene an executive session. The technology people will do that, and we will be there.